Some nations seek obedience, India seeks respect. And in a world still divided between power and principle, refusing to bow is not defiance, it is dignity. India's independence of thought and decision-making is a defining feature of its role in the modern world. It does not simply follow the directives of global powers, but instead carefully evaluates its own national interests, cultural principles, and the needs of its people before taking a stand. This approach often puts India in a unique position on the global stage one that is neither subservient nor aggressively confrontational. It is this independence that challenges the United States' long-standing desire for unquestioned global leadership, where compliance from partners has often been the expected norm. America's influence has historically been built on a combination of economic might, military presence, and the projection of values like democracy and freedom. While these ideals have appeal, the expectation that other nations should align entirely with American foreign policy creates tension with countries that prioritize sovereignty. India's decisions on issues such as trade partnerships, defense procurement, and international alliances frequently reflect a willingness to say no when alignment would compromise its autonomy. This is not an act of hostility, but a firm assertion that friendship cannot come at the expense of self-respect. For Washington, this independent streak can be frustrating because it resists the framework where the US leads and others follow. When India buys energy from sources the US disapproves of or engages in defense deals outside of American influence, it sends a clear message. Strategic relationships are built on mutual respect, not unilateral expectations. This challenges the traditional US model of leadership, where compliance is often rewarded and resistance is met with diplomatic pressure. India's position is shaped by its history as a nation that fought for its freedom from colonial rule. It carries a deep cultural memory of resisting control by outside powers. This history informs its modern diplomacy, where maintaining decision-making freedom is not just a political choice, but a moral one. India understands that blindly following another country's agenda can erode not only political sovereignty, but also the trust of its citizens. Moreover, India's growing influence on the global stage is not dependent on aligning with any single power bloc. Its economic growth, cultural reach, and soft power give it options. The US may seek India's cooperation in strategic areas like counterbalancing China or stabilizing global markets, but India chooses its partnerships based on long-term benefits, not short-term pressure. This makes it an unpredictable yet valuable player in global politics. By holding to its own path, India is quietly redefining what it means to be a powerful nation in the 21st century. It shows that leadership can come from partnership rather than dominance, and that respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned. This refusal to simply bow to American expectations is not a rejection of friendship, but a reminder that true alliances are between equals. In doing so, India is sending a message to the world that sovereignty and cooperation can coexist, and that unquestioned leadership is no longer the only model for global power. India's strength is often measured by its growing economy, its expanding defense capabilities, and its rising influence in international politics. Yet, what truly sustains the nation's place in the world is something less tangible, but far more enduring: its moral resilience and cultural depth. These are qualities that cannot be bought, manufactured, or imposed. They are cultivated through centuries of lived experience, struggles, and the wisdom of generations. While economic and military power can shift with markets and political tides, moral and cultural strength form the foundation upon which India stands, allowing it to navigate challenges without losing its identity. Moral resilience is the ability to hold to core values even under pressure. India's history is filled with moments where this resilience has been tested: colonial exploitation, internal divisions, and global political shifts. But the nation has consistently found ways to stay rooted in its principles. From Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolence to its steadfast commitment to democratic governance despite immense diversity, India has shown that power is not only about dominating opponents, but about inspiring respect through ethical leadership. This ability to lead with conscience is rare in a world where short-term gain often overshadows long-term integrity. Cultural depth is another dimension of India's enduring power. With thousands of years of civilization behind it, India's traditions, art, literature, and spiritual philosophies have shaped not only its own identity, but also influenced the wider world. From Ayurveda to yoga, from classical music to vibrant festivals, India's culture carries an energy that transcends borders. This cultural wealth is not merely heritage, it is an active force in diplomacy, tourism, and global perception. It creates bonds with people and nations in ways that treaties and trade agreements alone cannot achieve. Even in the modern era, when technology and industry dominate global competition, India's soft power, rooted in culture, remains one of its strongest assets. Countries with significant Indian diaspora communities often find themselves connected to India, not just through business, but through shared traditions, values, and social ties. This web of human connections builds trust, facilitates understanding, and strengthens India's influence in ways that weapons and economic leverage cannot replicate. When economic or military powers face setbacks, they risk losing their standing quickly. But a nation grounded in moral resilience and cultural depth can endure storms without collapsing. For India, these qualities act as both shield and compass, protecting its identity while guiding its choices in an unpredictable world. They allow India to maintain dignity in the face of external pressure, to resolve disputes without compromising core values, and to contribute to global issues from a place of principle rather than fear or coercion. Ultimately, India's true strength is not just in what it can produce or defend, but in what it represents: a civilization that values humanity over dominance, cooperation over coercion, and meaning over mere material gain. This is the kind of power that not only lasts, but also inspires others to follow. Soft power diplomacy has become one of India's most effective tools in engaging with the world, enabling it to build lasting alliances not through threats or force, but through trust, respect, and shared values. In a global arena, often shaped by hard power tactics, military might, economic sanctions, or political pressure, India's approach offers an alternative path that emphasizes mutual benefit over dominance by leveraging its culture, traditions, democratic values, and diaspora connections. India has been able to cultivate goodwill that outlives political changes and withstands the shifting priorities of governments. This approach rests on the understanding that trust is not built overnight and cannot be demanded. It must be earned. India invests in long-term relationships that go beyond transactional arrangements. Through educational exchange programs, cultural festivals, humanitarian aid, and technical cooperation, India presents itself as a partner that values the growth and independence of others. Whether it is offering medical assistance to African nations, extending disaster relief to neighbors, or sharing expertise in technology and agriculture, India's outreach signals a desire to empower rather than control. Cultural diplomacy plays a central role in this strategy. Indian films, music, cuisine, yoga, and spiritual traditions have found admirers across continents. These cultural exports create familiarity and warmth toward India, breaking down barriers that politics or economics alone might not overcome. A foreign policy backed by such cultural appeal is able to reach the hearts of people before reaches the negotiation tables of governments. Trust formed through culture tends to be deeper and more enduring because it resonates on a human level, unaffected by temporary political tensions. Another pillar of India's soft power is its diaspora. Millions of Indians living abroad act as informal ambassadors of their homeland, building bridges between India and their adopted countries. Their contributions to local economies, political landscapes, and social life in their host nations often reflect positively on India. This creates an environment where bilateral relations are strengthened not only through formal agreements, but through personal relationships that span generations. Soft power diplomacy also enables India to navigate global politics without being drawn into coercive alliances. Instead of aligning itself rigidly with any single bloc, India engages with multiple partners while maintaining strategic autonomy. This flexibility is possible because its influence rests not on fear or dependence, but on mutual respect and shared interests. In times of geopolitical conflict, such relationships tend to be more stable as they are not built on the fragile foundation of intimidation. The long-term advantage of soft power diplomacy lies in its sustainability. Military and economic dominance can wane, but trust, once established, can endure decades or even centuries. By continuing to invest in people-to-people connections, cultural exchange, and cooperative development, India ensures that its global partnerships are rooted in goodwill rather than obligation. In this way, India's soft power becomes not just a diplomatic strategy, but a reflection of its belief that real leadership inspires rather than imposes. The tension between the United States and India, when it arises, is rooted in politics rather than personal animosity. On a people-to-people level, the bond between Americans and Indians remains warm, respectful, and often deeply affectionate. individuals from both nations connect through shared values such as democracy, freedom of speech, entrepreneurial spirit, and a belief in education as a tool for advancement. These personal connections forged in universities, workplaces, neighborhoods, and cultural exchanges stand in contrast to the strategic disagreements that sometimes emerge between governments. Politics operates in a realm of national interests where decisions are shaped by global power balances, economic priorities, and security concerns. When the two countries differ, whether over trade policies, defense agreements, or international alignments, it is a matter of competing strategic visions, not a rejection of each other's people or culture. The American public, by and large, continues to appreciate India's rich heritage, vibrant democracy, and growing role in the world. Likewise, Indians admire American innovation, technological leadership, and the opportunities the US has provided to millions of Indian immigrants and their families. The Indian diaspora in the United States serves as a living bridge between the two societies. With over 4 million people of Indian origin living in America, their contributions to science, business, medicine, academia, and the arts have not only enriched American life, but also deepened mutual respect. Festivals like Diwali are celebrated in US cities. Yoga is practiced widely, and Indian cuisine has found its way into the everyday American dining experience. These are not superficial gestures. They are reflections of genuine cultural appreciation that transcends political cycles. Similarly, many Americans travel to India to explore its history, spirituality, and diversity. They return home with lasting impressions of its hospitality and humanity, often becoming informal ambassadors for the country. This exchange of culture and ideas creates a foundation of trust that politicians, despite their disagreements, cannot easily dismantle. It is also important to recognize that political tensions are often short-term, while people-to-people relationships endure for generations. Diplomatic negotiations may stall, trade disputes may flare, and foreign policy goals may clash, but these moments rarely diminish the curiosity, goodwill, and collaboration between ordinary citizens. In fact, during moments of political strain, these personal relationships often help maintain dialogue and prevent conflicts from escalating. Friendship between the American and Indian people is anchored in shared human values that go beyond the headlines. Whether it is students studying together, scientists collaborating on research, or communities uniting for humanitarian causes, the human connection proves more resilient than any temporary political friction. This is why, despite shifting alliances and policy disagreements, the friendship continues to thrive. Political winds may change direction, but the human bonds between Americans and Indians remain a steady, unshakable current that carries the relationship forward. India's refusal to bow to external pressure is not an act of arrogance or defiance for its own sake. It is a declaration of self-respect, rooted in a long history of struggle for sovereignty and the belief that every nation deserves to stand as an equal in the global arena. This stance sends a powerful message that partnerships should be built on fairness, dignity, and mutual respect rather than on dominance or submission. India's approach is not about rejecting cooperation. It is about shaping cooperation in a way that honors the identity and interests of all involved. The global order has often been shaped by hierarchies where some nations dictate terms while others are expected to comply without question. India's position challenges this imbalance. By refusing to accept a subordinate role, it demonstrates that genuine alliances must be based on dialogue and consensus, not on one-sided demands. This principle applies whether the conversation is about trade, security, climate policy, or international governance. When India speaks at global forums, it advocates for inclusivity, fairness, and recognition of diverse perspectives, values that resonate far beyond its own borders. India's history reinforces the importance of this posture. Having endured colonial rule for nearly 2 centuries, the country understands the cost of subjugation and the dangers of unequal relationships. That legacy has fostered a national consciousness that values independence not just in name, but in decision-making and action. This is why India resists pressure to align blindly with any one bloc or to adopt policies that do not serve its long-term interests. It is not isolationist, rather, it is determined to engage with the world as an equal partner whose voice matters. This approach also sets an example for other nations, especially those in the developing world. When India insists on its right to make sovereign choices, it inspires smaller or less powerful countries to do the same. In an age where economic leverage, military might, and political influence are often used to compel compliance, India's stance offers a model for how diplomacy can be conducted with integrity. It shows that respect can be earned without yielding to intimidation, and that true partnerships emerge when both sides recognize each other's worth. India's refusal to bow is also a matter of practical strength. A country that compromises its independence too easily risks losing credibility with both its people and its international partners. By staying firm, India reinforces its image as a reliable yet independent actor, one that can be trusted to honor agreements, but will also stand up for its principles. This combination of cooperation and firmness helps India maintain constructive relationships, even with nations it sometimes disagrees with. Ultimately, this posture is about more than foreign policy. It reflects a belief in the dignity of all nations and the possibility of a world order built on balance rather than domination. India's message to the world is clear. Respect is a two-way street, and lasting peace and prosperity can only be achieved when nations treat each other as equals. India's stand is not just about itself. It is a reminder to the world that true partnership begins when no one kneels and everyone stands shoulder to shoulder.